All right, now back to California. Senate Bill 350. Governor Fallowface had a news conference yesterday on the shores of Lake Tahoe and decided to attack the oil industry. They're having a problem right now. Senate Bill 350, of course, is supposed to cut our gas consumption by 50% by the year 2030, along with the usual promises about upping the amount of renewables are used for our energy needs. It's a ridiculous bill, and it's all about climate change. It's passed the Senate, but it's struggling in the Assembly because, the murmuring is going on behind the scenes, or is that there's a number of Democrats that may not support it. They are pro-business, or they get oil company money, and therefore they may oppose this bill. Or maybe they believe, like we do, this will kill us. How are you going to exactly get people to cut back gas consumption by 50%?
You would have to mandate rationing. If you use a tank a week, let's say your car takes 20 gallons a week, the government would tell you, we're only going to give you a voucher for 10 gallons. And then you'd have to go to a gas line where they've jacked up the prices dramatically and get your 10 gallons and try to make that last. There's only two ways that the government can ration, and the government can also add, let's say, $10 worth of taxes. Suddenly gas is going for $15 a gallon. And they've done this. If you're old enough to remember the 1970s, there was mandatory gas rationing. They had the odd-even license plate system, remember? When there was gas shortages, states would say, if your license plate ends in an even number, you can go gas up on an even calendar day. If your license plate ends in an odd number, you can gas up on an odd day. And the station sometimes would only give you 10 gallons worth of gas or $10 worth of gas. And that's what California will have to mandate. Does anyone have any other way to cut gas consumption by 50% in the next 15 years? There is no other way. It's simply not possible. So this Senate Bill 350, is unbelievably destructive and damaging and stupid. It is the product of crazy people. And it's got to be stopped. And you're going to have to stop it. You're going to have to start calling everybody up and telling them to knock it off.
When we talk about this in more detail in the next segment, we'll be providing you with the numbers to show you how crazy this mandate is to cut gas consumption by 50%. But let me just give you this as a preview, because when you talk to the author of this bill, Senate President Kevin DeLeon, and some of the other Democrats and Jerry Brown that support it, they'll tell you, oh, no, we're not going to push gas prices to like $15 a gallon. We're going to get people in zero-emission vehicles. Well, listen to this. Given current and evolving technologies, the only way to achieve that level of reduction would be if every new car sold in 2030 and beyond were zero emission. Most say that would be unattainable. To imagine just 15 years from now, everybody has a zero-emission car in the state of California, it's not going to happen, particularly with the rising levels of poverty we have.
Oh, the cars are extremely expensive and extremely impractical. There is nothing that is more overblown, oversold, exaggerated, and lied about than electric cars. They're no good for most people. They're way too expensive. They'd have to spend many, many, many billions of dollars in tax money to give us an electric car that'll give us a 70-mile range. And you simply can't have that in Southern California. That's not livable.
All right,
that's not reasonable. And it's not their effing business. Bottom line, it's not their business.
Here's the old guy on the shores of Lake Tahoe railing against the oil companies.
I read a book about the automobilization of the world. And in this book it said there were 300 million cars. Well, now there are 1 billion cars. And the rate we're going, we're going to have 2 billion pretty soon. Now, when you add 7 billion, 8 billion people, 1 billion, 2 billion cars, you're changing how it all works. And how it all works is we take stuff out of the ground, out of the environment, and we fabricate it. And then we fabricate, and then we use it. And then we dispose of it. You got to put it somewhere. You got to find a sink. So first you extract, then you dispose, And how does it all work? Well, it worked before we got here, and it's still working with us, but in a very different way. So we have to understand through science what's going on,
What the hell is
and
he
through
talking
collaboration, how to manage it. And what it's all about is to preserve the beauty that we have received and to make it work. So we have this bold experiment. Can 40 million people live? Can they live with 38 million vehicles? So it's going to take science, management, technology, and learning how to live with nature. Because at the end of the day, nature rules.
Yeah, it was a strange statement, wasn't it?
It's Naked Guy in the Park.
Wow. The reporters must have been just staring like, what the hell is all this?
He also said the oil industry have a product, oil companies have a product, and this is a direct quote, that is highly destructive while highly valuable at the same time. And we're trying to work out the right policies. It's not his business to work out the right policies. Oil is not highly destructive. Oil has created modern life, which most of us are happy with. He may be an exception. He's into this religious nonsense where he thinks God gave us the gift of the planet and we are now spoiling the planet by extracting the oil and burning it. That is his own nutty religious obsession, and he's entitled to that. But now he's trying to impose his religious belief system on our economy and on our way of life. And he wants to, when he talks about the automobilization of the world, that is a clue as to how much he despises.
Yeah, let's go back to horses and high-speed rail.
Exactly. He wants to go back to the 1800s.
Train travel.
He can't stand it. He's still this weirdo guy when he was 22 who was going to the seminary and wearing robes and running around. And he's a freak. He's a complete freak. How he got elected 4 times as governor, they ought to do an investigation into the psychology of California. Because there's just no bigger political freak than Jerry Brown.
When we come back, we'll go through the numbers about this. Because, again, they want to get people into zero-emission cars, electric cars. All right? There were 32 million cars out there today on the roads of California. How many of those do you think are electric vehicles? We'll get to that coming up.
John and Ken Show, KFI Shannon is News.